does the U.S. actually have in what goes on in Libya?
Administration officials will tell you, Doreen, that because the U.S. has only had a warming of relations with Libya since 2004, that its relationship with Tripoli is simply not as deep or as far-reaching as the relationship that Libya has with other countries, notably members of the European Union, notably members of the Arab Union, and, of course, members of the Arab League. The U.S. is looking to all of the members of these particular organizations for a kind of leverage and coordinated message in order to impress upon Gaddafi that what he is doing in response to what they consider a popular uprising and demand for respect of basic human rights is unacceptable. This is also a situation, though, where they feel that they do have enough of an open line, as it were, to speak to officials within the administration. However, we are told by administration officials that apparently on Tuesday evening, Secretary Clinton tried to initiate a phone call to her counterpart, Moussa Koussa, the foreign minister in Libya, but wasn't able to get through for technical reasons. Of course, as our viewers know, many people have been trying to communicate what's going on inside Libya, but have had extreme difficulty because of the government's attempts to interfere not just with telephone traffic, but with internet traffic as well.
All right, Rosalind, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so while the international community pushes for sanctions against Libya over Gaddafi's brutal crackdown, his son says that everything is normal in the country. Saif al-Islam has called for Libyans across the country to come together to fight what he calls a national battle. And he says the problems lie in the eastern regions. In the city of Tobruk, close to the Egyptian border, there's no presence of security forces in the area. And the presence of Cyrenaica is also in the hands of pro-democracy protesters. Well, that's according to Italy's foreign minister, Franco Frattini. And it's the same situation, in fact, in the western city of Misurata. That's where army officers have reportedly thrown their weight behind calls for Gaddafi to go. And Tripoli, meanwhile, that's the capital. It's set to be on virtual lockdown. It's always been Muammar Gaddafi's stronghold. Here's Lawrence Lee.
Muammar Gaddafi may have used his famous Green Book in his address to threaten protesters with death, but in the town of Tobruk, this is what they think of it. Here, the commander of the Libyan army has told AlJazeera that his forces are with the people, not Gaddafi.
I was with him in the past, but the situation has changed. He's a tyrant. I've heard him in his speech. We're not separate. We're not secessionists. We're not asking for separation.
Pictures like this serve to demonstrate the standoff that's now holding in Libya. The people of the uprising say victory will be theirs. Gaddafi remains immune to pressure.
I
will not leave the country, and I will die as a martyr at the end.
Everywhere it's tense, the situation fluid. This is the town of Misurata in western Libya, which has reportedly fallen to the opposition. If these new pictures are accurate, then they would seem to bear that out, but the country remains split. This video purports to show the aftermath of fighting on the streets of Tripoli between pro and anti-Gaddafi forces. It's been widely reported from the capital and Benghazi that gangs of yellow-hatted militia have been given free rein to move house to house in the hunt for the opposition. This, Gaddafi's address of Tuesday night, all his tactics have enraged even those who know him well.
He's using mercenaries, not because he wants to use them, because he cannot use the army. He cannot use the armed forces of Libya because they are Libyans and they are faithful and honest people. They will not kill themselves, because killing their cousins and uncles and friends, it means that they are killing themselves. So he doesn't trust them. He doesn't trust even his own guard.
What's beyond dispute is the chaos on the streets and the danger which protesters often run headlong into. Here, for instance, there seem to be snipers on the roof of the building opposite. There's a small crack, and a man goes down, shot in the groin. But while the international media is now beginning to find ways into Libya, interpreting the direction events are heading in remains as difficult for people in the country as it does for the outside world. The latest rumour, again unverifiable unless it happens, is that Gaddafi has threatened to blow up his oil pipelines, which would bring havoc to a country already beset by poverty and would have ramifications on oil prices across the world. If that's leading to an exodus of expatriates, then it's this kind of thing which is putting the fear into everybody. These people, whoever they were, tied up, blindfolded and executed. We were passed this picture by a fleeing migrant on the border with Egypt. After he filmed it, he ran. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
Well, earlier, Libyan state television aired a short speech by Gaddafi's daughter, Aisha, refuting reports that she's left the country.
Firstly, I don't follow these agent channels. I only watch the official state channels. But I was surprised by the number of phone calls that I received from my friends abroad telling me this news. I would like to tell the Libyan people that I am as steadfast as this house I stand in front of. And this shows to the Libyan people the amount of lies, fabrications and false news these channels are spreading. I heard about the news that the UN ended my duties as an ambassador of goodwill. I heard this news and I don't know if it's true or not. But all Libyans that know me know I am a goodwill ambassador, with or without the UN.
Well, the international community may have to impose a no-fly zone over Libya. That's according to the United Nations top human rights official. Navi Pillai's comments come as the UN Secretary General called for a peaceful transition in the country. And Nick Clark can give us more on that from our Washington Broadcast Center. Nick.
Yeah, Darian, thanks very much. Well, after meeting with his senior advisors, Ban Ki-moon condemned the ongoing crackdown by Muammar Gaddafi's government. Let's have a listen.
The violence must stop. Attacks against civilians are a serious violation of international humanitarian and human rights law. And those responsible for brutally shedding the blood of innocents must be punished. Thank you very much.
So more condemnation there from Ban Ki-moon. Let's speak to Kath Turner down at the United Nations in New York. Kath, more condemnation there, as I say, but let's get on to this issue of the no-fly zone. Easy to say, but harder to implement, especially given the various processes that the UN would have to go through to make it happen.
Absolutely, Nick. This is something that is talked about on a very high level, but really the chance of that happening and any time quickly to make any difference in Libya is very far away. When you think about the number of member states that are part of either the United Nations Security Council or the United Nations High Commission Council in Geneva, those member states all have their own relationships with Libya, whether they're diplomatic, whether they're business, and so those kind of things can affect how those member states would vote. So even if Pillay is calling for a no-fly zone, in theory, that sounds like something that could happen and could help Libya. But when it comes to a vote and passing a vote, that's not going to happen anytime soon. There's so much backdoor and behind-the-scenes diplomatic wrangling going on that any chance of getting that kind of military action approved would be days away.
Right, interesting hearing Barack Obama speak a little earlier. The words, "this must stop," is what he said, and there's pretty strong condemnation coming from him. And also as part of his initiative, if you like, he's going to send Hillary Clinton to Geneva to go down the human rights line. Why do you think that is? It's a kind of a curious maneuver.